She seemed vagrant, so the manager threw her out when he knew who it was and tried to win into tears. Life goes round and round. Solidarity with people is a value which should always be implemented. You never know when you might need help. Today, we bring a story that surely will reflect this. This is the story of Daniel, a 17-year-old boy who worked in a restaurant on the outskirts of the city where he lived. At his tender age, he had been in charge of his little sister and his sick mother. Day after day, he went to school, and at night he put on his apron and headed for his work, which hardly was enough to survive. Despite this, Daniel was the most smiling of all the staff. He always dealt with kindness to people and played with children who visited. One good day, while Daniel was fulfilling his responsibilities and carrying orders from here to there, the door of the restaurant opened, and behind it appeared a woman. The woman had some in her hair faces, brought a cane, and wore truly tattered clothes. She leaned on the first chair she saw to rest. Her hands were shaking in the cold winter, and she looked forward to a couple of youngsters who were enjoying a delicious hot chocolate accompanied by a hot pastry. Silently, she broke people's attention. They immediately turned to look at the entrance and made a gesture before the appearance of the elderly woman, who couldn't move from the place. Ashamed and trembling, she managed to get closer to the first table and, with a very soft voice, said, "Excuse me, guys, I don't want to bother you, but I couldn't eat anything today." She couldn't finish explaining her situation when a bald man, dressed in a suit, grabbed her by the shoulder and pushed her out the door. The elderly woman stumbled twice, but the angry man didn't care. The old woman, who could no longer stand on her trembling legs, knelt at the sad and cold room door. She looked through the glazed doors of the restaurant, seeing how much warmth was inside, but also how many frosty hearts were warming themselves with a cup of chocolate. Next to the door of the restaurant was an alley where the poor, lonely, and dark old woman crawled as she could until she found a trash can full of leftovers from the delicious things sold in that place. Without hesitation, she approached and started to get everything she saw in good condition to eat. On the other side of the wall of the dark alley was the manager, who exactly was the man who had thrown her out a few minutes before. He was asking for apologies from all the restaurant attendees and announcing that due to the inconvenience, he would give everyone a round of free biscuits and juices. Daniel, who had witnessed the whole scene, felt he should do something for the poor old lady. So, he ran out the back of the restaurant and found her next to the garbage can. The young Daniel, when he saw her, imagined his mother, who was bedridden but still warm and with a plate of food. The woman in front of him hadn't been so lucky and surely had no children to take care of her. He put his hand in his pocket and touched the only bill he had earned that day. Things were not going very well for him, and he also had expenses, but at least he had a place to go and something to eat. He ran towards the elderly woman and helped her up. He opened his hand and handed her the money. The old woman looked up and saw in that young man a kind and smiling face. She returned his look and let out a cry. "Thank you," she said. "This is the kindest thing anyone has done for me in years. You are a very focused young man, and one day you'll get what you deserve." After saying this, she squeezed his hand and walked away up the street. That night, Daniel thought about the old lady and what she had said, and he realized that despite not having much, he already had a lot. He had the love of his mother and his little sister, a warm home, and a plate of food on the table. He also wondered about the woman's fate and what would become of her, and finally, he fell asleep. The following day, Daniel went through his usual routine, but he couldn't shake the thoughts of the elderly woman. He began to notice others in need around him, people he had previously overlooked in his busy life. Each time he saw someone struggling, he remembered the old woman and the gratitude in her eyes. This inspired him to start a small, quiet mission of kindness. Whenever he could, he would save a bit of his tips and buy a meal for someone who needed it, or offer a kind word and a smile to lift someone's spirits. His coworkers began to notice his actions and were moved by his generosity. Slowly, a culture of kindness began to spread through the restaurant. One evening, as Daniel was clearing tables, he found a small, delicate bracelet left behind by a customer. It was beautiful, adorned with intricate designs and tiny gems. He decided to keep it safe in case the owner returned. Days passed, and no one came to claim it. Daniel couldn't help but feel a connection to the bracelet, imagining it belonged to someone who might be in need. Weeks later, as the cold winter continued, Daniel encountered a young girl shivering outside the restaurant. She was poorly dressed and looked as if she hadn't eaten in days. He invited her inside, offered her a warm meal, and listened to her story. She had run away from an abusive home and had nowhere to go. Daniel's heart ached for her, and he decided to help. He reached out to a local shelter and arranged for her to have a safe place to stay. The young girl, grateful for his kindness, noticed the bracelet he had kept. Her eyes widened in recognition. "That bracelet belongs to my grandmother," she exclaimed. "She always wore it, but it was stolen a while ago." Daniel was shocked and realized that the elderly woman he had helped might be this girl's grandmother. He quickly explained the story to the girl, who began to cry, overwhelmed with emotion. Determined to reunite the family, Daniel took the girl to the alley where he had last seen the old woman. They searched the area, asking people if they had seen her. After hours of searching, they found her in a small, makeshift shelter, huddled against the cold. The reunion was heartwarming and emotional. The elderly woman, now knowing that her granddaughter was safe, hugged Daniel and thanked him once again for his kindness. The news of Daniel's good deeds spread throughout the community. People started coming to the restaurant, not just for the food, but to be part of the warmth and kindness that Daniel radiated. His actions inspired others to help those in need, and soon, the restaurant became a beacon of hope and compassion. A week later, the routine was the same: school, chores, his little sister, his mother's illness, and work. Daniel tried to keep himself in good spirits. He maintained a good relationship with his coworkers and kept smiling at every person who arrived at the place. Just at that moment, the doors opened, and a very elegant lady full of jewelry and a large big-brimmed hat dressed in a black skirt that perfectly matched her white coat entered. She exuded good taste and money. The woman sat at one of the best tables in the place and was immediately attended to by none other than the restaurant manager, who didn't know what to do to please the elegant woman. He called Daniel and gave orders to serve the respectable lady, but as soon as he smiled at the lady and prepared to give her the menu, the lady, who had noticed the manager's adulations, smiled back at him. The manager started telling her the specials of the day and offered to personally bring her order. To this, the lady replied, "Excuse me, sir, I don't want to be attended to by such a superficial man." The manager looked offended by the accusation and immediately set out to ask why. The lady, who had been looking at the menu, looked into his eyes and began to explain her behavior. "A few days ago, I was very hungry and disoriented, as I had been a victim of an assault. So, I headed to one of my restaurants to seek help in a warm place where I could wait for someone to come for me," answered the lady. "It was then that I realized that the people who work for me lack a bit of sensitivity to others." The manager automatically remembered that day and how rude he had been with that old woman. He apologized, very embarrassed, to which she replied, "Don't worry, sir. I accept your apologies, but you'll understand that you can't keep leading my business with someone so cruel like you." The lady paused and turned to see Daniel and, smiling, said, "People like this boy are the ones I need to be in charge of my business." "What's your name, boy?" she asked. "Daniel," he answered. "From now on, Daniel will be the new manager of my restaurant chain. I will be eternally grateful for the kindness you showed me that night," said the lady. Daniel, who still couldn't believe what was happening, burst into tears and hugged the lady, grateful for the great opportunity she was giving him, thinking that his mother's suffering would end thanks to the treatments he could now afford, and about the many things he could buy for his sister with this new position. This boy was a very effective and friendly manager who organized the staff and set standards to help the most needy. What a good example Daniel set. Having solidarity with those in need is what the world lacks. We cannot be indifferent to them. Always remember to act well since one gets what they deserve. This is the moral of this short story. As weeks turned into months, Daniel flourished in his new role as manager. His leadership style was compassionate yet firm, and he quickly earned the respect of his colleagues. The restaurant saw an increase in customers, many of whom were drawn by the positive word of mouth about the young manager who had a heart of gold. Daniel's life also changed significantly outside of work. He was able to move his family to a better neighborhood, closer to his workplace, which made it easier for him to juggle his responsibilities. His mother received the medical attention she needed, and her health began to improve. His little sister was enrolled in a better school, and Daniel made sure she had everything she needed to succeed. One day, while Daniel was managing the restaurant, he noticed a familiar face at the door. It was the elderly woman he had helped months ago, but she looked different now. She was cleaner, dressed in warm, new clothes, and had a bright smile on her face. She approached Daniel and gave him a warm hug. "I wanted to thank you again, Daniel," she said. "Because of your kindness, I found the strength to turn my life around. I am now living in a shelter and volunteering there to help others who are in the same situation I was in." Daniel was deeply moved. He realized that his small act of kindness had not only changed the old woman's life, but had also created a ripple effect that was now helping others. This filled him with a sense of purpose and satisfaction. The woman continued to visit the restaurant, and each time she brought more stories of people she had helped, inspired by Daniel's act of kindness. She became a regular part of the restaurant's family, and her presence reminded everyone of the power of compassion. Daniel's efforts to help those in need continued to grow. He established a community outreach program that provided meals and support to the homeless and those struggling in the area. The program also offered job training and placement, giving people the skills they needed to improve their lives. His restaurant became a hub of hope and support, attracting volunteers and donations from the community. One evening, Daniel decided to host a community dinner at the restaurant. He invited people from all walks of life, especially those who were struggling. The event was a huge success, bringing together people who shared stories, laughter, and support. Daniel's restaurant became more than just a place to eat. It became a community hub where people felt valued and cared for. During the event, a young journalist who had heard about Daniel's inspiring story approached him. She wanted to write an article about his journey and the impact he had on the community. Daniel agreed, hoping that his story might inspire others to act with kindness and compassion. The article was published in a popular magazine and quickly went viral. People from all over the country were touched by Daniel's story. Donations started pouring in to support the restaurant's community initiatives. Daniel used the funds to expand his outreach programs, providing meals, job training, and support to those in need. As Daniel's story spread, he was invited to speak at various events and conferences. He shared his experiences and the lessons he had learned, always emphasizing the importance of kindness and compassion. His message resonated with many, and he inspired countless individuals to make a difference in their own communities. Years passed, and Daniel's restaurant chain grew into a thriving business known for its delicious food and compassionate mission. Daniel remained dedicated to his community, continuing to expand his outreach programs and partnerships. His restaurants became places where people could find not just a meal, but hope and support. One day, as Daniel was reflecting on his journey, he received a letter from a young boy named Alex. The letter read, "Dear Daniel, I heard about your story and how you helped so many people. You inspired me to start a kindness club at my school. We help our classmates and the community, and it's all because of you. Thank you for being such a great role model." Daniel smiled as he read the letter. He realized that his journey, which started with a simple act of kindness, had come full circle. He had not only changed his own life, but had also inspired a new generation to carry on the legacy of compassion and generosity. One day, as Daniel was organizing another community event, a familiar face walked through the door. It was the elegant lady who had given him his first big opportunity. She smiled warmly at Daniel and said, "I always knew you would do great things, Daniel. You've exceeded all my expectations." Daniel thanked her and introduced her to his mother and sister, who were both doing well thanks to his hard work and dedication. The lady was pleased to see how far Daniel had come and how much he had accomplished. She offered to support his community programs further, and together, they expanded their efforts to help even more people in need. Daniel's story continued to inspire others, and soon, other businesses in the area started their own community outreach programs. The city saw a significant improvement in the lives of its residents, all thanks to the ripple effect of Daniel's kindness. Daniel's restaurant became a symbol of hope and compassion, and people traveled from far and wide to experience the warmth and generosity that defined it. Daniel remained humble and focused on his mission, always remembering the lesson he had learned from the elderly woman and the power of a simple act of kindness. Tell us, did you like it? What would you have done in Daniel's place? Leave us your answers in the comments. This was all for today. If you liked the video, like it and share it with your friends and family. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. We will be delighted to have you as part of this big family. Until next time, Daniel's dedication to helping others earned him numerous awards and recognition. He was invited to speak at international conferences, sharing his story and encouraging others to act with kindness and compassion. His message resonated deeply with audiences, and many were inspired to start their own initiatives to help those in need. One winter, a particularly harsh storm hit the city, leaving many people without shelter and basic necessities. Daniel quickly mobilized his resources, opening the doors of his restaurants to provide warmth, food, and shelter to those affected by the storm. His staff and volunteers worked tirelessly to ensure everyone was taken care of, and the community came together to support each other during the difficult time. The impact of Daniel's actions was felt far and wide. News outlets covered his efforts, and people from all over the world reached out to offer their support. Donations poured in, and Daniel used the funds to create a permanent shelter and community center, providing long-term assistance to those in need. As the years went by, Daniel's influence continued to grow. He mentored young people, teaching them the importance of kindness and giving back to their communities. Many of his former employees went on to start their own businesses and community programs, spreading the values Daniel had instilled in them. Daniel's mother, now in much better health, often visited the restaurant and the community center. She was incredibly proud of her son and the impact he had made on so many lives. She would often share stories of Daniel's journey with visitors, highlighting the importance of perseverance and compassion. Daniel's sister also thrived, inspired by her brother's dedication and hard work. She pursued a career in social work, determined to continue the family legacy of helping others. Together, they worked on various community projects, making a lasting difference in the lives of those they touched. The elegant lady who had given Daniel his first big opportunity remained a close friend and advisor. She continued to support his initiatives and often collaborated with him on new projects. Their partnership became a powerful force for good, transforming the community and setting an example for others to follow. Tell us, did you like it? What would you have done in Daniel's place? Leave us your answers in the comments. This was all for today. If you liked the video, like it and share it with your friends and family. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. We will be delighted to have you as part of this big family. Until next time, Daniel's journey from a struggling teenager to a successful business owner and community leader was a testament to the power of kindness and compassion. His story inspired countless people to look beyond their own circumstances and help those in need. Through his actions, Daniel demonstrated that even the smallest acts of kindness could create a ripple effect, changing lives and communities for the better. As Daniel looked back on his journey, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment and gratitude. He had come a long way from the young boy who had given his only bill to an elderly woman in need. His life had been transformed by that simple act of kindness, and he had dedicated himself to paying it forward every day since. Daniel's story continued to be told, inspiring new generations to act with compassion and kindness. His legacy lived on through the many people he had helped and the countless lives he had touched. The world was a better place because of Daniel's commitment to making a difference, one act of kindness at a time. Tell us, did you like it? What would you have done in Daniel's place? Leave us your answers in the comments. This was all for today. If you liked the video, like it and share it with your friends and family. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. We will be delighted to have you as part of this big family. Until next time.